I don't know, man. Talking about that piece with Chud Chatterson. I forget his fucking name.
I too forget his name.
Yeah.
But
Chris,
the guy who's totally Italian who fights dinosaurs.
who cares?
He loves Jesus a lot in a cool way.
All right, hello, and welcome to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon, episode 116. It is
God.
the 11th of November, the 11th month. It's 11/11. Make a wish.
Oh.
2022. I am the host of this here operation, Michael Deebs. I am joined by co-host Danko Suvin from the Instagram handle at DankTheLuz. We are not joined by John, who, as we told the listener earlier, is serving the gods of capitalism. So fortunate because I'm not gonna take favorites, but he's my favorite.
That's fair.
Danko, how are you doing today, pal?
I'm fucking bad, man.
Give it to me real. Give it to me raw.
Everything's pretty bad. Pretty
Yeah.
bad. I mean, good news is that I'm making the the poor choice of being back on video for the podcast again, because I no longer will be working in a public-facing position. Instead, I'm going to be looking for a job and ruining that by making sure my face is out here. Yeah, dude, life is.
Should I?
It's raining. It's pouring.
Should I put your LinkedIn credentials on the podcast from now on, or?
just add a link to my LinkedIn, to my Instagram. That's what I'll do
Danko
for pictures
at the following LinkedIn profile. But go ahead. Sorry, I think I cut you off a little bit.
No. I mean, that's most of what I got.
Just
everything's
unethical, and you're doing the moral thing by putting yourself at risk.
Yeah, I'm doing like the almost moral thing by continuing to work for an unethical company for a long period of time, pretending that what I was doing was helping, and sincerely allowing myself to believe that for a while, and it's not true.
You gave it the old college try.
I did. That's what my favorite quote by Marx is. Just try it. Just try it. Yeah, it'll work out.
The proletariat should give it the good old college try.
And if it doesn't work out, it's not so bad.
Yeah. Nah, you only die or something, right? Or other people die, or
continue.
I
for the rest of time.
I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say you'll be sorely missed at your position at Raytheon.
Oh, it's finally been sold out. Oh, all my clout's gone. That's the good thing, though.
Are they making you get rid of the millions of dollars of stock that you?
No, I gotta keep that. Which is going to inform all of my political choices going forward.
I would assume so. Yay or nay on continuing conflicts in Ukraine? Just real quick.
Look, all I know is that it's good for people to fight for themselves.
Yeah.
So
right.
The more opportunity we give people to fight, the better the world's going to be for it.
Yeah, without a doubt. Thank you for that wise insight.
How are you?
I'm pretty all right. Things with my job have finally calmed down to an acceptable degree. It won't last that way for long, but
never does.
I don't feel burnt out like I did last week, so that's the good news. Maybe some things on the horizon, which I will not reveal at this point in time, but it'll eventually make itself known if things happen.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice for everyone listening. Never ever say anything good about your future, or you will ruin it.
Yeah.
It'll fall apart. But yeah, yeah,
Yep.
hell yeah.
So,
And wait,
oh, go ahead.
we got a comment. I guess it's about you, but it's been happening more for me as well. So I'm not sure. It says, "Geez, dude, that gray beard expanding fast."
Yeah,
Um,
it's probably about me because I'm no
yours is more evident.
against the black backdrop of the rest.
Yeah.
I assume
Um,
Red Caledon will let us know which one of us old dying people he's talking about.
I mean that would be good of them. I during my 3 weeks of eternity in California, I noticed more and just an explosion of gray hair coming into my beard, which
Life comes
I have
at you
such a
fast.
mixed color, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But it's such a mixed color that it's kind of hard to notice to some degree. But yeah, it's Steve's. You got the old man clout today.
Yeah. Well, I've been having a couple of stressful weeks. Oh, Door is
Yeah.
fucking perfect. Okay, good to know.
Oh, I am perfect.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's cute. Um, so some things have been happening in the world. I don't know if you've heard about this.
What?
Things
No.
have been happening in the world. Um, the subject of today's podcast, in case you weren't aware, because I think you just stumble blindly into all these things whenever you come on,
Hmm. Hmm.
is um well, the episode's title is Liberalism's Nazi Zionism, not Zionism. I kind of meshed the words
Oof.
together. Not Nazionism.
There's a lot there.
Oh, yeah. I figured it was an incendiary enough title to. I don't think we get clicks. Um.
Especially in the wake of Kanye, it's the right time to start
Well,
calling
I
out,
mean,
those people.
there's the perspective of the wake of Kanye, but then there's also the very real Israel election that happened, in
Hmm.
which a far right faction was promoted top tiers of government. So
I mean,
yeah, the stuff
happens
with
occasionally
Kanye,
these days.
yeah, the conversation about Kanye does not matter to me, and I wish people would just shut up about that. To be honest, not saying you. I'm just saying I think it's incredibly boring to like keep feeding this guy who obviously has some mental illnesses that are running
Oh,
out of
sure.
control, and he's feeding off of the attention that he's getting because those mental illnesses probably drive him to do so, and he doesn't have a whole lot of people like pulling back on the reins. So
Well, yeah, that's all he's asking for. He's just asking for his wife and kids back. Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
but
Is Pete Davidson still railing out his ex-wife?
honestly, could not fucking tell you, man. I'm
I
sorry.
have no idea. I just know that happened at some point.
Yeah, I know it happened too, but I really
Yeah.
can't express how little interest I have in anything dealing with Kanye West. I've never,
One of
I think I
the
mentioned it on the last episode because it came up in conversation, but I never even really cared for his music that much, to be honest with you. Couple of
Yeah,
bangers
actually,
here and there,
yeah.
but like overall, meh.
Yeah, I've actually gotten more into his music over the last like a year simply because I'm an
Anti-Semite.
anti-Semite.
Oh, a lot
But
of people are talking about this cool anti-Semite Kanye West. What's his music about? Oh, this is actually slapping.
I do remember I was on a date back in like March,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, oh, I know. And we had just finished up dinner, and this place was closing, and this song comes on, and I forget what happened, but the girl ended up bringing it to my attention, and like then the waiter started talking with us about it, and I'm like, "Who the fuck is this? I don't know what this is." And she says, "This is Kanye West," as if I was a fucking idiot,
Slowly bow
because I
your
am.
head. You are in the presence of a musical genius.
How do you not know about Kanye West? So I'd say that my amount of care is healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the appropriate amount of care, is to listen to
yeah.
something and go, "Oh, that sounds all right," and never care about it more than that.
I
Um,
am getting a tattoo of him right next to my Michael Gira tattoo, like on my ass. Just the two of them looking towards one another, but also looking at something else that may or may not,
looking through each
be
other,
apparent.
perhaps.
Looking looking through to each other.
Ooh. All right. So
Yeah.
the first article of news that I wanted to look at today is a federal judge basically put the pause on student loan relief again. This has been paused in a couple of states individually. This is, I believe, the first time that this has happened on a federal level. Um, the unfortunate fact of this is, I think, that since the Biden administration already got everything it wanted out of this proposal, which is voter turnout, right, for the Democratic Party, because, oh, look, they did something good for us. Yay, we can believe in them. Um, I don't think their heart is really going to be in fighting this too strongly. Uh,
Yeah.
if I'm incorrect in this, I mean they're going to appeal it, and if enough appeals and whatnot happen, then it goes to the Supreme Court, which now is also facing a post-election sort of environment. There's been a couple of times that similar cases have reached the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is whatever the term, they basically decided not to hear the case and to just like dismiss it. I guess
Hmm.
dismissing it is the now that we're in the post election cycle, I don't think they're going to dismiss it. I think they're going to hear it, and I think they're probably going to rule in favor of stopping the loan relief program. Um,
It's
so
more likely than not. Yeah.
yeah, I've had a couple of people reach out to me and basically say what I said before, which is that, hey, this isn't the first time something like this has reached the Supreme Court. I do think we are in a much different political atmosphere now, that the election is over. And again, the Biden administration has never been like a good faith actor in this. They waited intentionally until right before the election to roll it out so that people would feel like, oh, hey, the Democrats are doing something for me. And now that that juice has been squeezed out of this, your vote's been counted, and they probably don't care about you anymore.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's also been, this is uh, just an obvious thing, but we shouldn't forget that the entire theme of the Obama presidency, which was not the Biden presidency, but they're similar in a lot of ways.
there was some
The
overlap in
whole
the characters, right?
right, but pretty much the theme of it was, well, we tried really hard to do the thing, it just didn't work.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the bad people's fault that I can't help you. So
And so
yeah.
yeah, I mean the ultimate takeaway from this is, this is a Trump appointed judge that did this. We not we as in you and I, but we as in the royal we of America have this incredibly naive, uh, honestly baby like belief that our institutions have the ability to be apolitical, and judges that are appointed have to follow the law, or like they interpret the law impartially or whatever. That's never been the case, and there is no such thing as an apolitical person, especially when you're talking in the case of laws, which are inherently political themselves. Um,
Yeah. I
so
actually
go on.
I had a buddy over this last week, and he's he's someone that's never paid a whole lot of attention to politics, which I've always found a little bit frustrating. But anyway, so he ended up bringing that up, that he doesn't care about politics, uh, and I was
Scrambled
as
eggs.
surprised. Right. I was as surprised about it as I ever have been, despite hearing it from him 1,000 times. And I just ended up saying, what do you mean you don't care about politics? And he said, well, I care that I have enough money to eat, and I want people to be able to like do well for themselves, and essentially just expressing that he wants everyone to be free and have economic opportunities. I'm like, that's literally all politics. I don't know how you don't
Only
see
one way to
this.
make that happen, which is unfortunately politics.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Well, it's because
anyway.
politics is essentially just how power is organized and allocated. And if you're not doing
Yeah,
anything to allocate or organize power in such a way that people are allowed to be free and have food and whatnot, then you get the system we have now, which is Joe Biden is at the top, and he doesn't care about you, and he's never cared about anybody except for his sweet boy Hunter.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So yeah, and he doesn't care if corporations are taking the proceeds of all your labor and you don't have enough money to eat. That's the way things are run right now, and it's only by doing stuff that I probably shouldn't say out loud that we make this different.
And I mean, I will kind of just make the last gesture, which is that it people who don't believe in quote unquote politics, they don't believe in it because of the fact that they don't believe in this goofy voting shit and like the arguments about which politician is the devil this week. And those are kind of like
I think those are valid
those aren't
points
bad
too.
things. Yeah, right. Yeah. So a lot of these people that believe themselves to be non-political are mostly just, not into the dog and pony show, and really
Yeah.
are probably the best people to try to
So
evangelize
that's actually
to.
something that I covered a little bit on last week's episode, and I understand that you were traveling, so you didn't really get an opportunity to listen in on it. But it
Yeah, I
turns
was in
out that
hell.
yeah, it turns out that if you do, yeah, you had a rough travel as well. But it turns out that if you like do research on the demographics of people who don't vote, most of them are for things like wealth redistribution, single payer health care, uh, uh, housing homeless people, or like housing programs for people in general. And the reason that they don't vote is because when they look at the political landscape and who they're allowed to vote for, there's no options for them really. And so they become
Right.
disinterested in voting because who are you going to vote for? The guy that's not going to do any of that shit just because he promises he's going to like step on your neck a little bit less, or like kick you in the balls a little bit less often, right?
Or
Like
more. What if I
or
want
more
more?
if that's what you're into, but you got to be into that, and there has to be enthusiastic consent for it, which is the
You're
important
goddamn
part.
right.
Yeah.
You got to
Amen,
sign
brother.
forms.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I've always had to do that when I get a new therapist. So yeah.
those might not be therapists.
Hmm? Oh,
Let's go to the next link. This was actually sent to me
do
by
it.
a viewer of the show. But I thought it was right up our alley of what we normally talk about on here. It involves uh, identity politics being used for bad aims. A financial company that is taking over essential services for government like services. Um, and it's basically a money scheme. So uh, this article from the Louisiana Illuminator, and I don't think this is the exact article that they sent me, but it had the same headline, so I think it might have been like reported or whatever. You know how these news agencies just kind of like regurgitate whatever they can from subsidiaries and whatever.
Indeed.
But the headline here is MasterCard gave New Orleans $100,000 for a truly needy city couldn't get people to take the cash. So the article starts out in November of last year, Mayor Latoya Cantrell gathered finance executives and community leaders on a basketball court inside a city recreation center to announce a new initiative that, she said, was aimed at addressing the city's racial wealth gap. The mayor's vision centered on the Crescent City card, a quasi municipal ID with banking capabilities powered by credit card giant MasterCard and financial technology company Mobility Capital Finance, or MoCaFi, that would make it easier for city residents to access both banking and city services. So basically, it was going to be an ID card that also worked as your bank card, and Mastercard was going to run the whole thing. So that means Mastercard is the kind of like implicit owner of your identity in a certain way.
Right.
As part of the Crescent City card rollout, Cantrell announced that 125 opportunity youth, which is an interesting thing to put in quotation marks, would participate in a basic income pilot program, getting $350 per month, loaded onto a MoCaFi immediate response card for 10 months to use as they saw fit. That program, administered by Cantrell's nonprofit organization Forward Together New Orleans, launched in late April, and city officials say the spending data demonstrates how the unrestricted cash has helped participants build financial stability. The city also quietly launched a second Crescent City card pilot program with a smaller basic income component. It was designed to give 125 truly needy residents spending cards that would be loaded with $200 a month for 4 months, though the city ultimately managed to hand out only 76 cards. But a central goal of the pilot was to test a new function of MasterCard's City Key platform, a product the company is marketing to local governments as a way to disperse public aid and provide access to services. So, this whole program is basically MasterCard's way of saying, hey, we can actually step in for the government. Would you like us to step in for the government? We can step in for the government. Um, which, one of the things we talk about often on this broadcast is private companies stepping in for what should be government services, running them into the ground, or using predatory means to kind of take over these government services. Uh, you know, the next step after MasterCard's like, hey, we can run this aid program, but also, we're gonna treat it as kind of like a loan service. This is kind of
Mm.
like, it is genuinely a slippery slope in this circumstance whenever you allow a financial company to kind of take over, not only like dispersing aid to people in times of crisis, but also having their identities linked. Their like government issue identity is now given to you by MasterCard. Um, and they kind of say it out loud here in this next little line. The primary thing that this initiative was testing for was the technology. What they're interested in is taking over the government's ability to give you an ID so that they can link it to your banking information, and have kind of like complete control over, anytime you got to show your ID. Now they can track all of your movement as a banking organization. They already do quite a lot of that to begin with, because anywhere you go, you usually have to, pull out your card and pay for something. But it's even worse when it's just your ID in general, and how this will end up playing into things like, oh, you get stopped at by a police officer. They ask to see your MasterCard approved ID. They scan it. Now MasterCard knows that you had an interaction with the police. And how is that going to play into things like, whether or not you'll get a loan or something like that?
Yeah, how's it going to play into your social credit score? A thing that only communists would have.
Right. The other, thing about this is $100,000, and obviously there's probably some like administration costs on MasterCard's side or MoCaFi's side. Um, this is nothing to these financial companies, and so like
Yeah,
trying to paint them as some like altruistic force, and really what they're trying to do is use this as a testing ground for taking over government services.
Yeah, it's
$100,000 is
just
not much of an investment for them to get a lot of really useful feedback on whether or not they can take over government services.
yeah, the lowest possible like amount of money to pay someone who makes six figures, right?
Mm.
So some kind of like minor middle manager at MasterCard, they just ended up taking that person's salary and putting it into R&D, which they would have preferred to do anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, also note that New Orleans is one of the most impoverished areas in the entire country. So they're preying on people's desperation for just a couple $100 a month for a limited period of time so that they can test out their little identity scam, essentially.
yeah, it's it's very cool. It's very cool. I trust it. I trust it. I don't know. Seems fine.
Yeah, and then
Ooh, refs.
the other kind of takeaway from this is that even though people were kind of offered free money, I think enough people were skeptical about it. It talks about it somewhere in this article.
Yeah, did
That
that like sync the pilot program or?
I don't know if it sank it, but I think maybe they're gonna retool it in some way or another.
Right.
But they were surprised that out of the $100,000 that was offered, there was something like $36,000 left over. And a lot of it has to
That's
do
good.
with so ultimately the program managed to put cards in the hands of 76 people, about 60% of the original goal. The other thing is staffers with the city's Office of Youth and Families said they didn't know if the unused cash was returned to MasterCard or to Forward Together. Forward Together is now set to dissolve following a legal dispute between the group and its former executive director. The group has not said what it will do with private donations once it shuts down. Lot of shady shit here. The Mayor Latoya Cantrell has in this auditorium when she announces this program, finance executives and community leaders. I put community leaders in quotation marks for the listener because God only knows who these people actually are. And if they're trying to push this program where a finance company is taking over people's like ability to get an ID, are they really community leaders, or are they either unwitting dupes or people who are just trying to exploit their own communities for gain?
Yeah, I'm
Little
imagining
column A,
like
little
a
column B, right?
right. This like a Black Louisiana preacher, and he's just going off to his congregation about how there's finally a chance for everyone to pull themselves up,
My
and it's
brothers and
brought to you by
sisters.
Mastercard.
My brothers and sisters.
I wasn't going to do a voice, but
I'm
I
doing it
tried really
because,
hard not to do a voice.
as some of the listeners and viewers might know, my partner is from Louisiana, and she hates it when I do that voice.
It is really funny.
No, say
Your
now, here,
version of
boy,
the
Massacre gonna give you that OID. So you can go and buy yourself some crawfish and some boudin.
Pierre St. Pierre offering the new MasterCard.
Yeah. My name is Pierre St. Pierre, and I couldn't help but notice you got some mighty fine toes there.
Bless it. Bless it. Well, that's good. That's good. Just handing out the mark of the beast to 100.
I mean, yeah, I hate to do the whole like conspiratorial
but
Illuminati thing, but at the same time, there's some merit to it that like
it's a private business that's trying to give you an ID and control your access to cash.
Yeah,
Like,
that's close enough to
there's
the
no
mark of the beast
conspiracy,
that I'll allow it.
right? Like, well, that's the thing is that I guess a conspiracy. I don't know that it has to be this denotatively, but connotatively, it certainly has to be. Is something that's secret.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and I mean, in the article, they did pretty much plainly say, "Oh, this is a testing ground." That's
Yeah.
what we're interested in is testing
This.
this program where we, a financial corporation, which by the way, these are the people who have ruined the economy that you're trying to survive in right now, are going to pass out $100,000 to people and not even be successful at that, and you know, real community partners is what I would call them.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's MasterCard owned by? I don't know. One of the two companies that
Satan.
owns everything. Satan. Yeah.
Satan, Beelzebub, Moloch, or what's the other one?
A ball.
Yeah,
um,
one of
uh,
those characters, I believe. um, let's move on. We had the midterms. The midterms aren't quite done being counted yet.
oh, sorry.
Um,
Really quickly.
yeah.
It's MasterCard was created by they call it an alliance of several regional bank
Oh.
card associations,
Oh.
which is I think there's a
It's
word for that we only apply to brown people like beneath the southern border
a
of the U.S.
cabal or a
No,
cartel.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, I mean, it's one or
It's
the other. I like the
right,
word
right.
cabal. Cabal is
Cabals
good
are for
sometimes.
well, cabals are for Jews.
Oh, are they?
Um,
Well, that's topical. So I'm glad I used
yeah,
that.
but no, like that's literally what a cartel is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So
Well,
Mastercard
it's
Inc.
an
is a
alliance
cartel,
when it's evil people trying to take all your money.
right? Anyway.
Yeah. The regional lords of finance and death decided to launch Mastercard. Um, the midterms.
The Rebel Alliance. Oh, the midterms happened. I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
There's been a lot of weird gloating from the side that ultimately kind of has lost.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is the expectation is that there was going to be a red wave. Um, I thought that for a long time, and then I think a little bit before the midterms, I probably said at some point that because the Republicans went so hard on abortion access, they probably fucked like their red wave up in the midterms. However, so the prevailing wisdom is that during a midterm election, whoever the sitting president's party is takes some real hard losses. They weren't quite as hard of losses in this particular election, but it's still enough that they're probably going to lose. The Democrats are going to lose control of the House. They'll probably retain the Senate, or it'll be really close. Um, but they picked up a couple of governor seats, um, which governors have a limited amount of what they can do within their own state, so not huge, not anything that is quite as powerful as having control of all the federal legislation in the country, which is what the Democratic Party had last week, and now they probably will not have again. So it looks like we're entering a lame duck period of Congress because our awesome democratic system means that in order for things to pass, uh, you know, not only does the House have to vote on it and pass it, but the Senate also has to vote on a similar bill or something that's close enough that we can say, yeah, they're basically the same thing or the same bill in order for it to be like codified into law. So that means we'll have a Democratic Senate probably and a Republican House, and neither of them are ever going to agree to anything. And it's in the Republicans' best interest that nothing ever passes, so that the Democrats can look like they suck because the sitting president is a Democrat. And so, for as much gloating is being done by people who are weirdly aligned with the Democratic Party, saying, "Oh, where's that red wave?" Well, I mean, there was a red splash, and now we're fucked politically for the next 2 years at least, and probably for the next 6 years because in the 2024 election, the lame duck period that we're entering is going to be a huge point of contention for the presidential election and whatever Senate and House races are happening. Also worthy of noting, I put this into my Instagram story. But one of the major reasons that this wasn't quite as obscene a loss as it probably should have been for the Democrats is because we here in America lost a very important state backed right, which, I'm saying state backed because I get it, human rights aren't real, whatever edgelords want to say. We do, however, live in a society that is controlled by a state, and that state has police forces and military power. So do whatever you want, but understand that the state can kill you for it. And one of those state-backed rights that we lost is the access to abortion, which even if you are anti, abortion for the sake of, I don't know, a mother doesn't want to carry a child, abortion is also for ectopic pregnancies and stuff like that. And several states have outlawed, abortion writ large, no matter what you're going through, even if, it's a product of rape or incest or anything like that. So we lost a huge right in order for the Democrats to not lose quite as bad. In addition to some other things that we've kind of implicitly given up, a lot of voting rights are on the chopping block for the Supreme Court this upcoming what do they call it? Cycle. I don't know what the Supreme Court calls their thing, but basically their next contemplative period of thinking about what laws they can session maybe. But yeah, we've got a bunch of rights that have been chopped, a bunch of rights that are going to be chopped. Gerrymandering is going to become more and more extreme probably over the next 2 years. And thank God the Democrats didn't lose totally, so they can't do anything still. And with the power, the power that they had at the time they had it, they didn't do anything like pack the courts or like try to end the filibuster or anything like that.
Yeah, I walked into this ball kicking factory, and I expected to get kicked in the balls 37 times. Only happened 35 times.
Yeah,
so you
so
could say
a
I've
real
had a
big
pretty
win
good
for
day.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, these
Look, you
balls
should
are
be
black and
impressed.
blue, but not red yet. That's when you break the skin and blood comes. I don't know what else going for there.
Jesus Christ.
So let's move on to our main subject of the night, which is Israel also had elections. Possibly much more exciting than what happened in America, which is kind of just the realization that nothing ever is going to happen good ever again. Which I think a lot of us
Nothing
already
gets
kind of
better.
resigned. Yeah, I think a lot of us already kind of resigned ourselves to nothing's ever going to be good ever again a while ago. But
Yeah. Who did you vote for, by the way, for the thing?
I didn't fucking vote.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
You
Yeah,
you might
yeah.
see the bottom left of the map here. There's this little place called California, and it's pretty
Oh, yes, I
solidly
see.
blue. So it's not like I would have changed anything because I wasn't going to vote for a Democrat anyways,
Right.
or a
Yeah.
Republican. I should point out, just in case anybody thinks that I might have voted for a Republican.
We are Republicans on this podcast.
Yeah.
Now we are decided.
But like the Spanish Republicans of 19 like 20 to 30s.
Right. I'm like an Irish Republican,
Right.
but yeah. I really do hope that Hillary ends up running in 2024 because I'm gonna vote for her like crazy, dude. Like I'll pay my friends, I'll commit crimes in order to get her into office. That would be so fucking funny.
Oh, so I switched the map over to the house, and
The house.
the area I'm in actually red, but by quite
You
a lot.
piece of shit.
Guy is this? Why won't it like? I think it was Daryl Issa got reelected again, but he always gets elected.
What the fuck is he? Wow.
He always gets elected
That guy
San
is
Diego.
it is the devil, and I don't even necessarily mean it in terms of his ethics, which is also true. But he is the devil in the sense that he is, I think, in like an immortal trickster spirit of some sort who
Yeah,
will
that
never
makes
go
sense.
away.
Yeah.
Like he's had that seat since longer than I can remember. And I'm pretty sure he's always looked the same. Um, yeah, it's it's a whole fucking thing.
Yeah, I think
Wow.
I've said this to people in the past, and I'll keep saying it, but I think that California is eventually going to flip red regardless. Given like what we keep seeing election after election. San Diego in particular has always been weirdly conservative.
Yeah, I mean
I've talked
military
about the
bases and stuff,
well, yeah, you got the
rich
military bases,
people.
but then you also just have like the weird San Diego conservative, which
Yeah,
will be a guy that has like a punk rock T-shirt on. He's in his mid 40s. He's got a bunch of piercings and tattoos and like earplugs, and then he'll tell you all about how he's not happy with all the Mexicans coming across the border, even though he
yeah.
looks like an alternative weirdo kind of guy that should be like peace and love and like fuck the government sort of stuff. But they're all like super pro police state, super pro like immigration restriction,
Man,
anti-trans guys. Like,
I
what?
sure do miss San Diego.
Yeah, no, it sucks sometimes.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
That's
San
really
San
cool.
Diego
That's really cool.
conservatives are a weird bunch because they look like they shouldn't be conservative, and they'll even like listen to music that is like explicitly anti-conservative music. You know, like Rage Against
Oh
the
yeah.
Machine or like
Yeah.
any number of punk rock bands that are saying like "fuck the police" or whatever. Even rap groups that say "fuck the police," and they'll still be very pro police once it comes down to
Yeah,
like
dude.
voting.
Dudes who only listen to Dead Kennedys and fucking like NWA, and yet somehow are still like, well, there are black people, and then there
Yeah, exactly.
are.
um,
That's
I'm
very
glad you
cool.
didn't use one of our FCC
I mean, we only have so
approved.
many of them.
Yeah, we only have so many of them, and we can't really use those all willy nilly. So yeah, the midterms.
Mm.
Not good for anybody, and I don't consider any of these blue states to be like really wins by any means whatsoever. Um, but whatever, you know.
But let me ask you this: it was bad, right? But was it funny?
That's the other problem is the midterms weren't even really that funny if you
Yeah, they
really.
were. Yeah,
Yeah,
not a whole lot of comedy included in that. Yeah,
the stuff with Fetterman is kind of
that's
funny, just because he looks
yeah,
like
sure.
an ogre, and he beat Oz because Doctor Oz is a fucking retard.
It would be so funny if he would have won, though. Like it would have sucked, but it would have been so
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
fun.
To just have like
Oh my
Doctor Oz all the
God.
time being like, well, actually, I was at the Publix the other day, and he looks around like for approval. And I was buying groceries. That's what we do, right? We buy groceries. um,
Hell yeah. Well, good. Good.
yep,
What's
yep.
next?
What's next is Israel's government.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah, treading on some thin ice here, perhaps. I don't know. But the first thing I wanted to point out is I was reading about their elections, and I kept on getting confused because I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And so I found this useful diagram that shows how Israel's government is constructed. Um, so you have the people, and they vote for a legislative body called the Knesset. I checked, and you do actually pronounce the K. So the Knesset is
Nice.
essentially the Israeli parliament, and they have a couple of roles. All right, they elect a president for 7 years. They elect,
7 goddamn years.
yeah, They elect
You're
a prime minister and they supervise the government. All right, so that's what the Knesset does, and I'm mostly saying this out loud for the listener, because I think it's pretty self-explanatory to the viewer what's going on here. So the
right.
Knesset elects a president for 7 years. The president is just a state figurehead. Right now, it's a gentleman named Isaac Herzog. Um, and what the president does is he takes feedback from the Knesset, and they tell him, "Hey, we would like to elect, let's say, Benjamin Netanyahu to the position of
Our favorite boy.
to
His
the
whole family
position
rules.
of prime minister." And the president says, "Okay, well, you, the Knesset, are the legislative body elected by the people, so I will appoint Benjamin Netanyahu to the prime minister position." The president doesn't seem to actually do anything. Upon my review of how Israeli politics works, he kind of just seems to be there to be like, "Yep, I sure am a president." And what I do is I tell somebody else to be in charge of things. So uh, once the Knesset has said, "Hey, we'd like this guy to be prime minister," the president says, "Okay, that guy will be prime minister." Um, and then the prime minister forms the government, and by forming the government, I mean appointing all of the secretaries of various government agencies and organizations, right? So you have your like finance directors and public safety directors, secretaries of state, et cetera, et cetera. And then what the Knesset does in that regard is they are supposed to supervise whoever the prime minister has assembled for the government. Um, I'm not going to say this is a super retarded system because I know that the American system of government exists and that's like infinitely more
Yeah.
retarded, but this is a pretty obtuse system in my estimation. Um, a lot of weird looping around, and I don't know how. Like what does the president actually do? It doesn't seem to be much of anything, and that's why.
He's just a little figurehead boy.
Yeah, he's a figurehead.
Just
He goes to international meetings, but he doesn't like actually do anything. I think the most he can really do is go to a meeting and then come back and tell the prime minister like, "Hey, the EU would really like it if you did this, but you're the prime minister, so I'm just telling you." Um,
yeah, I think it would just be weird for them to like have a king. So
right.
for president is what they got. Um,
So, in the last election, a highly conservative group of factions essentially took control of the Knesset. There's 120 seats in the Knesset, and 64 of them are now owned by either extreme right wing parties or kind of moderately right wing parties. Um, and what they've decided to do is they've told Israel's president, "Hey, we would like Benjamin Netanyahu. Maybe you've heard of this guy." To be prime minister of Israel again. And the president said, "Well, that's my only job." Kind of basically is to say yes, Benjamin Netanyahu will be appointed to the prime ministerial position. So it's official as of today that Netanyahu is being invited to form the government because that's what the prime minister does. Uh, Go ahead.
he's always been fine in the past. Like he's
Yeah,
not a
we
bad not a bad dude. But
not a
no, just
bad dude. Go ahead.
yeah, he's a pretty bad dude. But no, imagine how much more conservative the US would be if once every couple of months, someone in let's say Canada just like launched a mortar over the border, and it like hit like a disco themed pizza parlor, injuring no one.
Yeah.
Um, like we would be fucking like Nazi Germany
Well,
if
I
that
think
started happening. It
I
would be
think
so funny.
that's kind of what we're looking at with the Zionist movement in Israel.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were just like saying we would be like that much worse, or if that's kind of actually what's happening here too. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean it's just it's so much easier to have these extreme right wing movements when there's something like that to blame, to like
yeah.
draw focus onto. Um, and it would
Well, I mean
be
that's what conservative groups are always trying to do in general is
yeah,
not our northern border, but our southern border. There's
right,
always some kind of implicit threat that the southern border is providing, and that's why we need to be super conservative and nationalistic, blah blah blah,
exactly.
and put children into what's basically internment camps, which two presidents in a row have done now pretty extensively, or just like do mass deportations. Despite the fact that many people south of the border actually have a much stronger historical claim to many regions of the South than the U.S. does. Um, which I don't know, maybe a parallel here between Israel and Palestine. Can't quite put a finger on it.
All I'm
Yeah.
saying is that if there was a Mexican version of Hamas, then we would be killing those children.
It's
We
it's
we would
it's
be.
it's actually still Hamas, but you spell it with a J.
Every white person in California is calling them Janus.
Yeah.
Let's go down to La Jala so we can start firing missiles back at Janus. Yeah.
So Israel's President Isaac Herzog announced Friday he will invite Benjamin Netanyahu to form Israel's next government, paving the way for him to take the country's top job for a record sixth time and extend his record as the nation's longest serving leader. Herzog will officially issue the mandate to Netanyahu on Sunday, he said. He made the announcement after meeting with all the factions in parliament, the Knesset, to ask who they would back for prime minister. Statement released by his office at the end of the round of consultations. 60. Oh, what the hell? Why is that ad popping up now? At the end, at the end of the round of
It was a
consultations,
sign.
64 members of the Knesset, which happens to be the exact number of all of the far right wing members of the Knesset now, recommended to the president the chairman of the Likud faction, Benjamin Netanyahu. He added that 28 Knesset members recommended outgoing Prime Minister Yair Lapid. The same number chose not to recommend anyone. Um, so we'll skip ahead a little bit to these guys who are maybe about to engage in a passionate kiss, but I think there's actually
I'm
some
hoping so.
argumentation going on in this
Oh,
picture.
is that the kind of tension we're seeing in that
Yeah, it's either sexual or aggressive,
image?
and sometimes it's hard to
Could be
tell the difference
both.
between both. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um. So, with a 4-seat majority in the 120-seat Knesset or Parliament, the five factions aligned with or allied with Netanyahu's Likud are all potential kingmakers. Failed to give any one of them what they want, and they could bring the coalition down. This is the fifth election that Israel has had in 3 years for prime minister. Um, well, so let me dial that back in a second because I did not speak in precise terms there. This is the fifth time a prime minister has been elected by the Knesset in the last 3 years. Elections don't happen for the prime minister. Elections happen for the Knesset, and this new Knesset has deemed that the new prime minister should be Netanyahu. But this is the fifth time that the Knesset in general has elected a prime minister in 3 years. We'll take a look at somewhere in here. I think. No, I don't think I put that link in there. But the last prime minister started in July, um, and he's already on his way out. So five months, basically. Well, 4 months. 4 months he was he was prime minister. The guy before him started in late 2021, and by July he was already out. So there's been a bunch of shifts in who the prime minister is over the course of the last 3 years. This new Knesset has settled on Benjamin Netanyahu. But the thing is that he got this position, he got this appointment from the Knesset by essentially building a right-wing coalition of maniacs. To put it lightly, I think. So any one of these
He was
factions,
building a suicide squad. He was
yeah.
the Joker, right?
So
Right? Is that how that works?
yeah, if he fails to appease any one of these five groups, he could essentially kind of lose like his seat as prime minister. So he kind of has to placate all of them. And the problem is that placating all of them means doing a lot of really bad shit, probably. Um, so when it comes to the ultra, this is one of the like first CNN articles on the subject of Israel that's been useful, I think, that I found in a long time. But when it comes to the ultra orthodox parties, their demands are uncontroversial as far as Netanyahu is concerned. Bigger budgets for religious schools and the right to not teach their children secular subjects such as math and English. What?
Gives a shit. Who gives a shit? Whatever.
I mean,
Whatever.
as
You don't
far as
need 'em.
English is concerned, I sure. I don't think if you live anywhere outside of Great Britain, you shouldn't have to teach English to children. uh, lots of other languages existed in the U.S. before it's colonized. So I'm not even gonna say English is the spoken language of the U.S. Now, fuck that. It's the spoken language of the island turfs. But math is a weird one. So religious schools will no longer have to, if Netanyahu wants to appease them, he will make it so that they don't have to teach math to their fucking kids anymore, which is real fucking bizarre to me. But we're talking about Orthodox here, and Orthodox Jews are incredibly problematic if you haven't done a lot of research on them. Not something we need to get into right now, though. The real showdowns, though, are likely to come with his new extreme right-wing allies. Netanyahu rode to power on the back of a stunning showing by the Religious Zionism Jewish Power List, which, with 14 seats, is now the third biggest grouping of the Knesset. Its leader, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has a conviction for inciting anti-Arab racism and supporting terrorism, has demanded to be made public security minister in charge of Israel's police. So we have a guy who has been convicted of terrorism in Israel as a Jew, which is incredibly hard to do, right? Because like Israel basically says, yeah, you're allowed to do terrorism against Palestinians. But he was so extreme that they're like, whoa, guy, you gotta like dial that back a little bit. The other thing is Ben-Gvir's partner is Bezalel Smotrich, who has described himself as a proud homophobe. He has said Israel should be run according to Jewish law. He has spoken of reducing the power of the Supreme Court and striking out the crime of breach of trust, which just so happens to be a part of the indictments against Netanyahu in his ongoing corruption trials. Netanyahu has long denied all of the charges. If Smotrich wins the justice ministry he covets, he may be able to make these things happen, ending Netanyahu's legal worries. we will talk about these two gentlemen at length in a moment. Um, but I put a link in between these two things, and I believe that I did that for um yeah. So this is kind of just like an explainer of how the voting worked out. Um, Likud leader Benjamin Netanyahu and his right wing allies won a decisive victory in Israel's election. Uh, the reason I wanted to bring this up is um, there the way that the parliamentary elections used to work is if you had as much as 1% of the vote, you would get a couple of seats in the Knesset. They later changed that to 2%, which kind of weeded out a couple of fringe factions on both, left and right sides of politics, but mostly left sides of politics. Interesting. And then as recent as like last year, it was changed that you have to have 3% of the vote in order to have a number of seats in parliament, which strangely weeded out like the parties that are like, we are actually Israeli Nazis and we think everybody who's brown should die parties. Left a bunch of still extreme right wing parties, and kind of killed some left wing parties. Um, but yeah, so the Likud party, which is pretty firmly conservative right, won the majority of the vote. Um, and then you have Yesh Atid is kind of a liberal sort of. We could call them the Democrats of Israel, or less. Religious Zionism won 14%. I think these are percentage. That's what I remember. Then you got the National Unity Party, Shas, which is another conservative party, and then the United Arab List only has 5 seats, and then the Labor Party only has 4. I believe Hadash Tal is another Arab Palestinian party, but not a huge showing for them in these election results. And part of the reason I wanted to bring this up is because, hey, guess what? Many Palestinians aren't allowed to even fucking vote in the first place. When Israel calls itself the only democracy in the Middle East, please understand that every democracy has an outgroup that is not allowed to even participate in that democracy to begin with. So it's not real.
We tried real hard with Iraq. We tried real hard to make another democracy.
Yeah, we've tried to make a couple of democracies in the Middle East, and they just never work out for some reason.
We'll call it Israel 2, brought to you by Halliburton and MasterCard.
Yeah. We keep trying to install all of these leaders for democracy, and for some reason it's not very democratic. So we talked about two gentlemen that Benjamin Netanyahu has kind of shacked himself up with in order to secure the prime ministerial seat. One of them was Ben.
Do you think they're sleeping together?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
With the shacking up.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Is
yeah.
they're all fucking, and it's not even like hot. It's like weird, greasy, desperate.
Well, it's kind of hot.
A little bit of crying,
greasy. Okay.
But not like, not like, oh, this is so beautiful, or oh, I don't know how much more I can handle. It's more like, oh God, I'm just so ashamed and sad inside.
Well, this is working for me. This is working just fine.
Well, it works for some of us. So one of the gentlemen we talked about was Itamar Ben Gavir, and I wanted to find a quick list of like kind of like the worst shit he's done recently. And so this is why we're at a Wikipedia article, because commentary always takes so fucking long in opinion articles and whatnot. But Ben Gavir an extremist who had faced dozens of charges of hate speech against Arabs, was known to have a portrait in his living room of Israeli-American terrorist Baruch Goldstein, who in 1994 massacred 29 Palestinian Muslim worshippers and wounded 125 others in Hebron, in what became known as the Cave of the Patriarchs massacre. He removed the portrait after he entered politics. In 1995, he threatened then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated 2 weeks later, saying, "We got to his car, and we'll get to him too," after having stolen a car ornament from his Cadillac. In October 2021, Ben-Gvir and Joint List leader Ayman Odeh had a physical confrontation during a visit to the Kaplan Medical Center to see Mikdad Kawasma, a Hamas operative who had been on a hunger strike for over 3 months of his administrative detention. Ben-Gvir was against Kawasma being treated in an Israeli hospital and stated that he had visited to check the detainees' conditions, as well as to see up close this miracle that a person remains alive despite not eating for several months. As Ben-Gvir attempted to enter Kawasma's room, he accused Odeh of being a terrorist for supporting extremists like Kawasma. Odeh then struck first, pushing Ben-Gvir, and then the pair began to scuffle before being separated by bystanders. Ben-Gvir later filed a complaint against Odeh, claiming he had committed a serious criminal act. So he's that kind of guy. Like, I showed up to be an asshole, and oh my god, you pushed me.
I'm gonna get a restraining order.
I think it's also useful to look at a picture of this guy.
Yeah, that's a man who carries mace.
Yeah, try not to hate that guy.
Yeah, he's
oh, shit.
That's good. That's good.
Fucking broke my chair, I think.
Mine is broken. It's really frustrating to me where it has no. It's not able to sit up unless I like force myself up.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So it just keeps. It's like a lazy boy now.
Yeah, I bent one of the arms, I think, just now on my chair.
Yeah. Broken Chair Squad. Donate to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon Patreon so we can buy new chairs. And you get a picture of my couch. You get a picture of my couch. We keep promising you the couch. My couch is broken now, by the way. I think I may have mentioned that before. Due to a chicken eating accident. Yeah. I'm also apparently heavier than I ever have been in my life. These are all disconnected ideas.
I'm okay,
have anything to do with one
another. Let's go on with the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
But I did realize that when I was packing up, when I was in California, I was collecting a bunch of books, and so I was filling up a giant suitcase with books and trying to make sure it was light enough that they didn't charge me $3,000 on the airplane. And I stepped onto the scale and with the bag, and I'm just looking down like that scale says almost 300 pounds. This is a fucking nightmare. So, but I look svelte, guys. I look great, as you can see.
You just got heavy bones. That's what they call it.
I got heavy bones.
I'm heavy boned.
Yeah. Well, it's just that every time that I step onto the it's the classic meme joke now. I lost 150 pounds, and all I had to do was stop stepping onto the scale with an erection. Anyway, I'm fine.
Yep. Back to Ben-Gvir, Itamar Ben-Gvir. In December 2021.
Sorry, I saw a fat piece of shit and I started thinking about myself.
Oh, buddy.
Go on.
So in December 2021, Ben-Gvir was investigated after a video surfaced of him pulling a handgun on Arab security guards during a parking dispute in the underground garage of the Expo Tel Aviv Conference Center.
Dude,
the guards asked Ben-Gvir to move
Sorry.
his
Yeah,
vehicle as
no.
he was parked in a prohibited space. He then drew a pistol and brandished it at the guards. Both parties taunted each other, and Ben-Gvir claimed that he felt his life threatened. The guards were
So good.
unarmed. He was criticized by lawmakers across the aisle, and the incident was investigated. Thank God for that. Go ahead.
You remember that story that we covered a while back about the some kind of shitty politician got killed by a guy in a Prius after trying to murder him
Yep.
with his truck.
Yep.
Um,
This is the reverse of that.
same guy, same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing,
Except
amazing.
the guards didn't have guns, and if they did have guns, he probably would have gotten his fucking tits shot off.
Yeah. How
Hopefully.
many times has this man thrown a glass of water at his wife for walking into the room? Like this is
This does this look like a guy that's married to you?
he probably bought a wife
I don't
somewhere.
know, maybe. Um. So,
He looks so smug too. Oh
yeah,
my God.
right. He's
Open
just
that
a
picture up again.
fat, smug piece
Let's
of shit.
let's look at him for a second.
All right.
Let's really soak this in. Um his
He's like if
glasses
Samwise
prescription.
Gamgee was a piece of shit.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. It's a really good way of describing it. And he's got this like glasses prescription that's probably about as bad as mine.
Yeah.
Because like it's that phenomena where if you look at this guy's glasses, it looks like part of his face is missing because the refraction is so intense. Um, yeah, he's this man. I almost feel bad because this man was bullied terribly as a
Yeah,
child.
and so this is a guy that believes in like Jewish supremacy, which I'm not talking
Some
against.
Arab guy probably like stole his girlfriend when he was in the second grade or
Right.
something.
This guy has not won the genetic lottery, and not because of any like Jewish heritage or anything like that. He's just a bad looking, shitty
Yeah.
guy who's also an incredible racist. And it's always the racists of like each I don't know, the racists of each like ethnic group that always look the worst, I think.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, because they're the ones that have to like rely so much on this
Yeah.
inherent idea of like supremacy rather than actually being able to just look in the mirror and see it or
Right.
whatever.
Rather than
Um,
looking in the mirror and being, comfortable with what they see, they're like, no,
yeah.
I'm greater than all these other people.
And
Uh,
you know that the grade school Palestinian kid that stole his girlfriend had like this beautiful head of hair and like already had
oh
a
yeah,
mustache and stuff, just like
rich.
fucking rippling like 7-year-old muscles, and just like carried her away. And he can't get that image out of his mind. Every time he closes his eyes at night, he just
Yep.
has that like weird shame moment thinking about, you know, Jesus, what a nightmare.
Um, so in January 2022, his level of security was increased. Due to frequent death threats, Ben-Gvir is accompanied by multiple security guards in public, and extra security measures are taken to ensure his safety.
His
Uh,
his security detail was increased due to multiple death threats coming from him.
right. Well, what's interesting is, so he has his level of security increased, and that's January 2022. By October of 2022, in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem, Ben-Gvir took part in the clashes between Israeli Jewish settlers and the local Palestinian residents, brandishing a gun, telling the police to shoot at Palestinians, throwing stones at the scene, and yelling at them that "We're the landlords here. Remember that I am your landlord." This was a message that was later repeated by him in a tweet the morning after the 2022 election in his victory tweet. Has
It's just
increased security, decides to go around and pick fights like a fucking bitch, anyways.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
that's what like yeah,
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 of course,
yeah.
it's that kind of guy, right?
That's
Like
amazing, dude.
the hall monitor fucking douchebag that like I've been given a little bit of power, so now I'm gonna abuse it because that's the only thing that makes me feel anything anymore. Since
Right.
my girlfriend in middle school was stolen by a beautiful Palestinian boy with a full
Elementary.
head
It
of
was the
hair.
second grade. Remember that.
Oh, okay, sorry, second grade.
It was
I
this is a
forgot the
real
lore.
formative memory for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
A real formative memory.
um,
uh,
but
so go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean it's actually funny that the elementary school thing and this asshole kind of came together as our well in the lore. They're not jokes. This is all
Yeah,
true.
no.
But
It's really happened,
because
and if he disagrees with me, he can come fist fight me himself.
yeah, I hope he shoots me. Frankly, I think
He
it would
can
be funny.
brandish a
I think
gun
it'd
at
be
me. It's
funny.
fine. I don't care. I don't think he knows how to use it.
Yeah, he probably gets scared every time he pops one off.
Well, he's never
And
popped
also when
one
he shoots a
off.
gun.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
What I'm saying is like he keeps
yeah.
brandishing guns and he never does anything with them. I think he doesn't even know how to use it, to be honest.
That's possible. But
Am I banned from Israel
no,
yet?
uh, but the two instances of like types of people, I'll rewind. I try to be a person that's like at least neutral about like the broader moral proclivities of individual human beings, thinking that there aren't necessarily bad people most of the time, and people are pretty complicated and stuff. But the instances that have made me realize that that's not necessarily true have been in elementary schools because you can just tell some kids are just awful,
Yeah.
mostly because of their awful fucking parents. But or people like this, like people who get some amount of power and then they become their true selves. They just they bloom like flowers, like chubby fucking stupid flowers.
Chubby, never learned how to shave proper. Like, what's going on with all that stubble on the neck, brother? Like, it's way longer on the neck than it is on the chin. He
Yeah,
just
that's
sucks.
rough. That's really rough.
Speaking of guys who suck, um,
He's also got that like that pallor that you have when
yeah,
you are kind of like you're kind of tan just inherently, like you have the kind of olive skin tone,
but
but
the
you
sun's
somehow are
rays hurt you
still
because you're evil ontologically.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just like you've somehow spent negative time in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. Anyway,
So
I say with a beautiful tan.
the other guy that Netanyahu is kind of shacked up in this arrangement. This is
You keep
uh,
saying that.
yeah, because they're fucking. I,
Oh,
I'm
oh,
not
the
shying away
grease.
from this. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're fucking.
it's the grease.
So we have Itamar Ben Gavir, and Itamar Ben Gavir's kind of like right hand man is this guy named Bezalel Smotrich. This guy is even worse somehow. Uh, which, right, the facial expression you're giving me is the correct one to think of when you're like, wait, there's a guy worse than the guy that's like uh actively engaging in oppressing Palestinians and like looks like shit, but still somehow thinks like Jewish supremacy is a real thing. Um, this is what he looks like.
Oh, you can see it. Oh my God, that
Yeah,
guy's eyes.
he's
That
got
guy has
those
murdered a child in the last
uh
45 minutes in that
without a
photo.
doubt.
Like he's
Yeah,
done it.
he's got the real child murderer eyes. Um,
Yeah,
which I think is
they're
actually an
so
anti-Semitic trope, but whatever.
only if you're like bleeding them,
Oh
only if
yeah,
you're like
that's
drinking their
true.
blood or something.
Um,
I think is the one. He just kills them. It's a sex thing for him. It's not like a
that's
sacrificial thing.
maybe also an
Is
anti-Semitic.
it? Is that a trope? I think that's just like rich people.
Well, yeah, uh,
Rich people also just drink blood of young
that's true.
people. I mean, that's a Peter Thiel thing. I don't think he's Jewish. I think he's just German.
No, Teal seems to me like a Germanic
He's
name.
a German American. Yeah.
Um, so
Famously, no Jews came from Germany.
no Jews came from Germany and settled, maybe perhaps in what is now called the state of Israel.
They're all Mensches though. Get it? Because that's a Yiddish term and also German because
Yeah,
there's a lot of
I get it.
overlap because they're almost identical languages in some
Some
way.
people might not get it, but I get it.
Yeah, you get it. I know you get it.
So
I'm explaining it to the other people.
so
It's a thing.
Bezalel Smotrich. This is the guy. So the last guy we talked about is the guy that's trying to become the minister of public safety. Um, yeah. So by public safety, he means I want to control the police and I want to tell the police that you can shoot all the Palestinian children that you see. Smotrich, on the other hand, is trying to become the minister of justice or the minister of finance. I've seen articles claiming that he wants either of those positions, so I think he's probably like comfortable with either of those positions because if
Sure.
you're the minister of justice, you get to choose kind of how the laws are applied in the land. If you're the minister of finance, you get to choose that, like, hey, we just don't help Palestinian people out at all, right? So he's got reasons to be on either one of those chairs. I think he would probably prefer the Ministry of Justice position.
Well,
Um,
here's a question for you,
Go ahead.
buddy. Which one do you think he'd do best in? Because I think we don't want to vote against the Israeli people, just because we disapprove of their government. So we need to make sure, just like when Trump came into office, that we're supportive of them, that we give them a chance, and
Yes,
that we make sure that they're assigned to the correct roles. So what do you think? Treasury or justice?
uh,
Finance or justice? Sorry.
oh god,
What do you
that's.
think?
Is there a gun to
What do
my
you
head
think?
in this situation?
There is, but
Pull the
it's
trigger,
just
buddy.
full of it's full of his piss.
Oh no! Don't pull the
Oh,
trigger.
no, see, you got to make a choice.
Fuck yeah! You put me in a real bind there. Um,
I say justice. It seems like he's a real,
he
he's real.
looks like a straight murderer. I mean,
Yeah,
straight
he's got like a
shooter.
hawkish wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, very. Say what you will about him, but his evil is refined.
That was a Warhawk joke, by the way. That
Yeah,
wasn't
we get it.
another Jew thing.
Well, I
I
don't.
didn't do that. You
Right.
fucking weirdo. No, it used to be Jordan Peterson people that would get angriest at me in my DMs, but it's been nothing but Zionists for weeks.
Oh, that's
Probably a
American.
couple months now. Yeah,
I
it's been
I
a while.
assume those people will eventually shift over to me at some point. Every now and then I get somebody that like says some dumb shit or like the other day when I posted about how Democrats have never tried to take any power that like benefits you. Some guy decided to DM me saying I sound delusional and not to treat the Democrats as a monolith. I'm like, what else
Shut
other
up.
than?
It's a party. Don't.
Yeah.
It's a party. It
I
has
didn't
power because
I
it's a
didn't
monolith.
go into it with him, but I was like I'm eternally baffled by people who continue to carry water for these feckless liberals. But I
Yeah.
mean, at the same point, it's like the Democratic Party runs off of vote blue no matter who. They're literally a monolith by their own definition.
Yeah, right.
uh,
If you can
but
describe them with one word that they've attributed to themselves, maybe,
yeah, we are a
maybe.
monolith. We're a big
Yeah.
monolith tent.
They keep describing themselves as like, essentially a wave, right? Like
Yeah. They're the
it's,
only
I mean,
thing
the
that stands
Republicans do it too,
between
but
us and democracy, is what I keep hearing.
yeah.
Or sorry, they're the
Yeah.
only thing keeping democracy intact, is what I.
I mean, you're right. You were right
Yeah.
about that
Um.
one.
So let's go on to Bezalel Smotrich, who is the right hand man of Itamar Ben Gavir, the demented weirdo we were talking about not too long ago. Um. We don't need to go into the first one because, well, no, let's go into the first one. On his arrival in Great Britain in February 2022, the Board of Deputies of British Jews tweeted him, telling him to go back to where he came from. Uh, in July
Jesus.
2015, yeah. So the British Jews were like, "Get the fuck out of our country." uh, in July 2015,
That's awesome.
Smotrich caused controversy by declaring a Knesset interior meeting that developers in Israel should not have to sell homes to Arabs. Um, yeah, so he was in the Knesset interior meeting, and he said developers in Israel shouldn't have to sell homes to Arabs. To describe that better, I guess.
Do they need homes?
Right, they
These
don't need
areas?
homes, I guess. The meeting took place following accusations that Galil Homes refused to sell homes to Arabs in Me'alat, a northern Israeli town. Smotrich defended the developer, saying that anyone who wants to protect the Jewish people and opposes mixed marriages is not a racist. Whoever wants to let Jews live a Jewish life without non-Jews is not a racist. He added that Jews are the ones deprived in Israel because they don't get free land in the Negev, a reference to Bedouins. I believe in God's words. I prefer that Jews make a living and shouldn't sell a house to Arabs. Uh, in October 2021, he stated to Arab lawmakers that you're here by mistake. It's a mistake that Ben Gurion didn't finish the job and didn't throw you out in 1948. Smotrich opposes gay marriage and says that he wants to promote the traditional family. In 2006, Smotrich helped organize a beast parade where
What?
participants led goats and donkeys through the streets in opposition to the Jerusalem Gay Pride Parade. In 2015, he referred
Damn.
to homosexual people as abnormal, stating, "At home, everyone can be abnormal, and people can form whatever family unit they want, but they can't make demands from me as the state." In the same discussion, he told the audience, "I'm a proud homophobe." He later apologized and retracted his statement, saying, "Someone shouted from the crowd, and I responded inattentively." In July
That's the
2015,
way to
after a
say it.
fatal stabbing attack on the Jerusalem Gay Pride Parade, he referred to the march as an abomination and a beast parade. The following month, Smotrich accused LGBT organizations of controlling the media and silencing those who share his conservative views. An Israeli NGO, Ometz, filed a complaint to the Knesset Ethics Committee to intervene and investigate Smotrich's comments. In April 2016, Smotrich tweeted that he supports segregation of Arab and Jewish women in hospitals and maternity wards. "It is natural that my wife would not want to lay down next to someone who has just given birth to a baby that might want to murder her baby in another 20 years, is what he said. The tweets were condemned by several Israeli politicians, including opposition leader Isaac Herzog and Jewish Home leader Naftali Bennett. These are the last two Isaac Herzog is the president. Naftali Bennett is one of the last prime ministers. Uh, Here's where we enter how liberalism gives way to these kind of people. The best that either the best that either
Yeah.
Isaac Herzog and Naftali Bennett could do is say, "No, that's fucked up for you to say that, dude. Don't say that. You're wrong for saying that." Not like saying, "Hey, you're a piece of shit and like we should kill you" or something like that. Like you got to take more definite sort of approaches to these kind of people is what I'm trying to say. And that's what liberalism always fails to do, is take a definite approach to these kind of people. It just says like, "We're going to write a nasty letter about how we disagree with what you're saying," and that's it. And it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It's feckless. It's saying the right thing, but without the right action backing it up.
And gradually over time, as history shows
Yeah,
us, you have people splitting off from this group of feckless liberals to go ahead and join the other side, or to split off a little bit more to the left. And then the liberals stuck in the middle are always just saying, why can't we all just be friends?
yeah,
And then the people in the right wing end up winning out because that's how this works.
yep. Um, in July 2016, Smotrich stated he was not willing to recognize reform conversions and their fake religion. The comment came following the passing of a Knesset bill permitting local religious authorities to bar non-Orthodox from using public mikvahs for conversion ceremonies, which countered a Supreme Court ruling to the contrary. So you got some like spicy Judeo disagreements here. Smotrich has advocated a shoot-to-kill policy for the military when they deal with Palestinians throwing stones. Mind you, these stones are almost exclusively thrown at armored tanks, and they don't do anything. Or they're thrown against Israeli police who are up armored and using riot shields, and also these stones don't do anything to them.
I would also point out another important factor in this, which is that even if you're not armored and someone throws a rock at you, you shouldn't murder them.
Right. Maybe you should think about
It
what
just
made
doesn't
them throw a
fucking
rock
matter.
at you, for sure.
Like, or like even you can if we're living in a totally brutal world where everyone has to be in mortal combat with one another all the time,
Right.
then maybe choose something other than shooting them in the fucking face after they throw a rock at you.
Yeah, do
There
do like
might be
some
other
badass
ways.
combos with a K, by the way.
Yeah, like I don't know. I imagine. Well, no, they're
A
apparently really
stone,
good at throwing.
a stone
I,
thrown at you can be thrown back at the very least.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the amount of protesters that managed to throw a tear gas grenade back, and
Right.
these fucking people can't even throw a rock.
So continuing with this particular entry here, asked what he would do if there, it, sorry, asked what he would do
Couldn't take it
were
enough.
another intifada to arise and a Palestinian child were to throw stones. He replied, "Either I will shoot him, or I will jail him, or I will expel him." Um,
All
Smotrich has
right.
argued that price tag assaults on Palestinian people or property, while criminal in nature, are not to be classified as examples of terrorism, which he defined as only violence carried out by an enemy within the framework of war against us. If you don't know what a price tag attack is, it's where a Jewish citizen will destroy a Palestinian's property, usually, destroying a car that a Palestinian owns, or defacing their property with graffiti that is like pro, Jewish Israeli state, that sort of
Filling their
thing.
bedroom with concrete. That's a fun one.
Right,
That's the one
yeah,
that happened.
or
That was
if
really
you are
cool.
the actual state of Israel, you bulldoze their house and fill their homes with concrete if you can't bulldoze them. Um,
That is like it's so cruel and unusual that it's almost funny. But no, there's a specific story about a man who I don't even think he may have injured someone, but this Palestinian guy, and they just went to his home and they just poured concrete into his bedroom, and they didn't do anything to the rest of the house. They just
yep.
they just filled his fucking bedroom with concrete, and it's
Try
just like
making your
what a
bed now,
fucking move.
bitch.
Yeah, it's just like
um,
this is
yeah.
very interesting
Well,
psychology behind that.
I mean, it's an obscene level of power dealing with people who have nothing, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that's part of the flex is like, yeah, we're not going to destroy your entire house. We're going to like concrete your bedroom so you can't use it anymore. And we have that
Yeah,
level of
it's
precision and power over you that we can just like specifically target the place that you sleep, and that's it.
yeah, it's the bizarro version of the what kind of gift can you get for a man who has everything?
Yeah,
It's just
right.
what can you take from a man who has nothing? His
Actually,
bed
yeah.
covered in
Um.
rocks. Well,
So that's what price tag assaults are, is basically destroying Palestinian property, which Israelis do often, and there's very little legal recourse against them when they do this kind of thing. Um, Commenting on a specific case, the Duma arson attack, in which a Palestinian family of three were killed and for which a Jewish settler was indicted, Smotrich stated that to brand such deeds as terrorism causes mortal and unjustified harm to human and civil rights. So basically, he's saying human rights are lighting a Palestinian family on fire. In April
And
2018,
everyone has a different reading.
well, that's kind of the only reading. uh, in April 2018, Smotrich tweeted that Ayad Tamimi, a 17-year-old Palestinian serving an 8-month jail sentence for assaulting a soldier, incitement, and interfering with a soldier in the line of duty, should have gotten a bullet at least in the kneecap. Twitter
Jesus.
responded by suspending his account for 12 hours and asking him to delete the tweet, saying that the tweet was abusive and could incite harassment. Smotrich refused to delete the tweet, saying that for Twitter, freedom of speech is reserved for just one side of the political map, and that he stood by his tweet. Yeah.
At least
He's
Twitter's
one
really
of
cool
those
now.
guys. Yeah, right. In June 2019, while pushing to be appointed justice minister, just after the previous justice minister had been fired, Smotrich stated, "We want the justice portfolio because we want to restore the Torah justice system and that the country should aspire to run itself as in the days of King David." In August 2019, Smotrich stated, "We Orthodox Jews would want the state of Israel to be run according to the Torah and Jewish law. It's just that we can't because there are people who think differently from us, and we have to get along with them. The United Right, a political alliance of right-wing parties, including the Jewish Home and Smotrich's Takuma, referred to the negative reaction as a media lynching, arguing that Smotrich emphasized that he cannot and isn't interested in forcing it on others. However, Smotrich had said, "The government makes decisions that affect us and impedes our liberties every day, so it is simply about what decisions are in the public interest enough to justify coercion. We, too, can force our needs on others, provided we are convinced ourselves of the validity of our demands." In November 2022, he voiced support for a conspiracy theory that the assassin of late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was radicalized and incited to carry out the murder by the Shin Bet Likud member of the Knesset and former Shin Bet chief Avi Dichter criticized the statement as unhinged from reality. That one's a little bit more deep in the politics, and I don't think really matters that much. But suffice to say that Smotrich is a lunatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you going to say? Go ahead and say it.
I thought we were talking about how he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Turn around with us.
Really quickly, let's take a little.
Oh, thank God! I need a piece of it.
Right.
I was gonna hold it in like a big boy.
No. And then we'll move on to the rest of the program that I have for us tonight.
I love the rest of the program.
Yeah, but
everyone stick with us.
Yeah,
stick with us. The rest of the program is going to be thrilling. Suck my balls. Suck my
They
mom's
can hear you.
balls
I
too.
can hear you as well.
Suck my balls. I'm singing a song for you. Mikey D.
Hey, thanks, man. Um,
You didn't
so
like it? You didn't like my fucking song? Piece of
no, not
shit.
really.
All right.
So we've
I got
talked
another
about
song for you
how
if you want. Okay. All right.
we've
We'll
talked
move
about
on. I
how
got it. No, no.
the
Move on, Mike. It's fine. It's fine. We don't have to talk about how little you
I
appreciate
actually
Mike.
intend not to.
Okay.
We've
All
talked
right.
about
All right.
how
Yeah.
the internal politics of Israel have kind of just allowed these far right extremists to rise to power. Basically, because all they've ever done is be like, "Hey, you shouldn't say that's a little bit too much, don't you think, there, buddy?" That's kind of like the only way that they've responded to these guys who, one of them has been convicted for actual terrorism. The other one just says like, yeah, do terrorism, please God, do terrorism. I'm
Which we would
sitting.
never tell you to do.
Well, it
Uh,
depends on what the terrorism is against, right? Because
well, no, I'm saying that genuinely. We would never tell you to do that.
yeah, we would never tell anybody to do
Let's
terrorism. We
move
would
on.
especially not tell anybody to do terrorism against like disenfranchised people. Which
Oh, well, now our irony's getting all mixed up. Now this is confusing for everyone. Anyway, yes.
uh yeah, so don't do terrorism, wink nod.
Be a
I
good
don't know
guy.
which way
Be
we're
a good
going
guy.
with this anymore.
Be cool. Just be
Yeah,
cool.
just be cool.
Just be cool.
Um so
Jesus.
now we need to enter back into American politics. Sorry, not American, United States politics, I guess, more specifically. Um
Wow, that's very woke of you.
yeah, well, it's different regions and stuff.
Because
There
because we could be
is
talking about Canada, we could be talking about
yeah.
Central or South America, we'd be
There
talking about Newfoundland. It's all possible. Everything's possible through Christ. You know what they say? Could be Cuba. Oh, APAC. Fuck yeah.
yeah, APAC.
All right.
Um, so APAC is the American Israel.
Political Action Committee.
Oh, because it's APAC
Oh,
pack,
APAC PAC.
and I
I
believe
never.
the first pack. So it's American Israeli
As
Peace Action
Public Affairs Committee.
Public Affairs Committee. There we go.
That
Which
sucks.
has its own political action committee.
Man, oof, that sucks.
Exactly. So there's APAC, which is American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, which has a political action committee. And if you know what a political action committee is, it's a giant funding machine for politicians. Uh, there are things that restrict how much an organization is supposed to be able to give to a candidate in American politics, right? Like you're only allowed to donate so much to a candidate for their political campaign unless you're just running an adjacent political campaign that happens to endorse them, which is what a political action committee is. And APAC PAC is the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee Public Action Committee. Um, and that public action committee does a lot of funding of politicians in American politics. Um, what I always find funny about this is the Democratic Party for what 4 years, going on 6 years now, because this still came up like in the last election cycle as like a minor talking point. Um, Claimed that Russia like totally rigged the election where Donald Trump won, because how could Donald Trump win without, some kind of massive interference from an outside agency you know, coercing people into voting for Donald Trump. That's the only possible way Donald Trump could win. Not because he's like funnier and shittier than all the other politicians that we think are all liars. Um, but you know, for all this hoopla that was made about Russia interfering in politics, there is an actual Israeli uh, political action committee that donates millions and millions of dollars to politicians and U.S. politics. Um, so this is from their own sources. This is APAC PAC's fucking website. APAC PAC. Yeah. The APAC PAC is the largest political action committee in the country. Um, that's weird. You're not from here. like I hate to be a little bit like xenophobic in that regard, but it's weird that the largest political action committee is not from the U.S. Inherently, it's a pro-Israel political action committee. Um, per their own metrics, supporting 365 candidates in 2022 with more than $17 million in direct support through APAC. The APAC PAC has delivered more money directly to candidates than any other political action committee in America. They give a bunch of figures here. The APAC PAC stands with those in Congress who stand with Israel. And that's you know, their own metrics. So in the last election, they apparently donated $17 million to candidates in the U.S. Election. There should be like some of the, there we go. Some of the graphics didn't load. But 10.8 million was donated to pro-Israel Democratic candidates. 6.6 million was donated to pro-Israel Republican candidates. So they're not really like a blue or red sort of organization. They're a
They seem pretty
mama
blue.
wants.
It's kind of weird.
What's that?
They seem a little blue.
They seem
Based
a
on those
little
numbers.
blue,
No, 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 no.
but
They
yeah,
might
I
need a
get
little
what you're
bit
saying.
more greasing, those Democrats,
Well, the
they're
thing
a
is
wily
that
bunch.
the thing is that we have to understand that Democrats aren't necessarily you know, pro freedom, anti apartheid, or anti war or anything like that. We have two right wing parties, and one of them sometimes aligns a little bit better with like Israel's weird attempts at liberalism uh, to mask their genocidal campaign. Um,
I think the Democrats really loved the war in Iraq. So, I mean,
they
everyone
did,
did. Everyone
and
did. We all love it.
then the other thing is, you know, Republican Congress people like Marjorie Taylor Greene that believe there's a Jewish space laser. Um, you know, there's a pretty large
Uh,
anti-Semitic portion of the Republican Party, which is probably why.
who love Israel
Who,
still?
well,
Like,
so there's a thing about why they love Israel. I think that
well,
we
yeah,
need to
of
go
course.
into. And the
The
reason that Zionists love Israel, uh, uh, by Zionists here, I'm talking about evangelical,
American Zionists,
yeah,
yeah,
evangelical Christian Zionists. The
right.
reason they love Israel is because Israel is necessary to bring back the second coming of Christ. They have to build the third temple on the mount, and that will, you know, kind of usher in the events that bring Christ back to earth. And they are completely comfortable with the fact that in the biblical telling of, you know, like how all this is going to go down, the Jews are going to essentially be eradicated through this process, but they're really happy to let the Jews do it because they don't care about that. What they want is Jibo to come back and, you know, cleanse the earth and bring us all up to heaven if we're worthy enough, that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and there's also, uh, a lot of those people believe that to varying degrees, right?
Right.
But even just in like literal secular practice for these people, they get to accomplish something that's much the same by just allowing them to use Jews as like a meat puppet to go ahead and hurt Muslims.
Right.
Like
Yeah. And
that's
that's the
it's a
entire
micro version of the same goal.
right, and that's kind of the entire goal of what Israel is, right? Because
Yeah.
Israel is formed at the end of World War II, um, and essentially the mood at the time is okay. World War II is over, but lots of Europeans still don't like the Jews. So what we need to do is find them a home. And instead of like integrating them into our societies that are more Jew friendly, what we do is we uh, decide that Palestine is going to be divided up amongst Jews and Palestinians, and we're going to thrust them into an eternal war where they always feel like they have to fight for survival because they're surrounded by people who are kind of essentially their enemies to one extent or another. We're also going to give them a bunch of military might so that, in as much as they're threatened, they also have the ability to exercise power against all their neighbors. And then we're going to back them in such a way that all their neighbors understand that if you ever attack Israel, we're going to come at you with nukes and anything else that we can possibly launch at you. Um, this is why, the United States routinely funds the Iron Dome. What country has something like the Iron Dome? America doesn't even have something like the Iron Dome, where it's constantly just ready to intercept missile attacks and then also to retaliate against those missile attacks. Uh, and we send Israel billions of dollars, over each year. I think if it's not billions each year, it's billions over the course of like two or and yeah, I mean that's so I mean the way that Israel kind of secures this is from opensecrets.org, and this is pro-Israel lobbyists and how much money they've given to individual political candidate campaigns, right? Interestingly enough, you have at the top there Biden Joe, 4,200,000 some odd dollars. Clinton, Hillary Clinton, 2,300,000. Got a couple of mixes here between Republicans and Democrats going down. There's some pretty substantial people here. Dick Durbin, who I believe is the Democratic whip right now, over $1 million. Ted Cruz, of all fucking people, just under $1 million. There's a Schumer. Oh yeah, Schumer, almost $2 million. So these people have gotten a ton of money from political action committee that is interested in progressing pro-Israel. By pro-Israel, I mean explicitly apartheid sort of politics in what used to be Palestine.
You know what probably would have been a better option than placing the Jews in Palestine uh, is if we just gave them like Hamburg or like
Right,
Bremen or like Saarland or something. One of these
yeah,
shitty German states that no one lives in anyway.
right.
Just give them Berlin. Fuck it. I don't care. Just like put them somewhere where they have like a reason to abuse the people that lived there before them.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I forget when it was I saw it, but I saw an interesting statistic about how ever since like the end of World War II, uh, the Middle East around Jerusalem has like the highest rates of skin cancer, because
Mm, right.
they essentially took a bunch of European Jews and stuck them in the Middle East, and yeah, um,
Fuck it. Give them Bavaria.
why
That's the
not?
funniest location, I think. I think that's the funniest possible place to have the new Israeli state. I'm actually
Red Kaladin
I'm
says
unironically in
give
support of
them
this now.
Silesia instead of giving it to Poland. Yeah, I mean Poland has
Yes.
some things to
Yes.
answer for. Why not? You know. Um. So
I
there's been
mean,
this.
all I know is that they need some like living room, some like Lebensraum, like they sorry. It's
So
rough.
in the United States, because all of this money comes from Israeli backed political action committees, there's been a very cozy relationship between Democrats and Republicans with Israel, to the point at which at one juncture, Netanyahu was invited to speak in front of Congress. Now, this is something that even the president himself has to be invited to do, to speak in front of Congress like this. Of course, whenever the president is like supposed to speak in front of Congress, because it's all just rites and rituals and bullshit, it's basically guaranteed that like the president will be able to speak in front of Congress. But to extend that to a foreign dignitary, is incredibly odd, has rarely ever happened. And then he comes here and he basically says the U.S. really needs to support Israel. This is an article from 2015, and it's back when Netanyahu was prime minister before. At 11 a.m. On Tuesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to deliver a speech to a joint session of Congress that has, before it's even occurred, become a major controversy in both countries. More than that, it has become a test for the U.S. Israel relationship. It has come to represent the changing ways in which politics in both countries are shaped by that relationship. Netanyahu's goal is to convince Congress to torpedo the U.S. led Iranian nuclear negotiations. This is something that worked out in our favor. And he came here to argue against it and was offered a position to speak in front of Congress to argue against something that ultimately benefited us. Um, which he thinks will result in a deal that hands Iran the bomb on a silver platter. He wants Congress to vote to impose new sanctions on Iran, which would kill the talks and thus significantly alter U.S. policy toward the Middle East. Guess what happened? That happened. Uh, this is while Barack Obama is still president. Trump gets elected and he kills the nuclear talks with Iran, which used to give us access to Iran's nuclear facilities so we could like investigate whether or not they were trying to build a nuke. Now we don't have that anymore, and they still probably have all the capabilities that they need to build a nuke, and we don't know what they're doing anymore. Um, Even from like the shrewdest perspective, that would have been a good thing for the U.S. But Benjamin Netanyahu is part of the same group of Zionists who is eager to throw Jews against the meat grinder in order to achieve their ultimate goal of. So, you have the evangelical Zionists in America who want the second coming of Christ, which, has to happen at the expense of all the Jews. And then you have the Jewish Zionists who think that by rebuilding the third temple, the Messiah will actually come this time. And so their entire goal is to rebuild the third temple so the Messiah can come, and it doesn't matter what expense you pay, but we really need the Messiah to come, because the Jews don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, so they're still waiting on the first coming of the Messiah. Um, but The Obama administration sees Netanyahu and Republicans as working to undermine not just Obama's efforts to strike a nuclear deal with Iran. Literally, one of the only good things Obama did is this nuclear deal with Iran. And Republicans and a lot of Democrats allowed Netanyahu to undermine it. Um, but his presidential authority over foreign policy, uh, so like in addition to that, um, undermining the nuclear deal, undermining his presidential authority over foreign policy. Democrats are angry at the perceived insult to the president. The effect has been to politically polarize an issue that has long been bipartisan in Washington support for Israel. So the U.S. has had this cozy relationship with Netanyahu where they kind of just let him fucking get away with any goofy thing he wanted to do. The best Democrats have been able to do whenever they did oppose him is be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. We don't like it when you do that. And Republicans have been like, yeah, fucking do it. Um, so again, we have liberalism failing to do anything concrete against a fascist movement and failing to properly take care of these kind of people.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Um,
Hell
and then
fucking
we
hell
we go
fucking yeah,
back
dude.
to more modern politics. So Ben Gavir, Itamar Ben Gavir, the guy that's probably going to become the public safety minister. Um,
You know,
he went,
the doughboy with a gun.
yeah, the doughboy with a gun that never actually uses it. Um, he uh, he goes to a memorial service for a person named Mir Kahane, and Mir Kahane was a extreme nationalist um who like advocated for the extinction or sorry, yeah, the mass expulsion of Arabs from Israel. The place that Arabs have lived in for all their lives. He wants to expel them from there. So a Ben Gavir is a former member of Kahane's outlawed Kak movement. I believe it's Kach actually, but I like saying Kak. Ben Gavir tweeted ahead of the Jerusalem event that his participation was in recognition of the slain U.S. born Israeli rabbi's love of Israel and fight for Soviet Jewry and against anti Semitism. But the most that the U.S. was going to do about this and did about this is they censured Ben Gavir, and if you don't know what
Of
censure is, it
course.
means we said you're wrong for doing that, and that's it.
We let him know he's been a bad
Yeah,
boy.
so he goes to this extreme nationalist event, says a bunch of things in favor of this nationalist martyr that died a long time ago. Um, and the best the U.S. can do is say, no, you shouldn't have done that. On the flip side of that, we have in recent memory Israel 3 years ago blocked Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib from ever entering the country of Israel.
It's just
So
a really funny move.
it is exceptionally funny, but it's also indicative of how Israel kind of runs the conversation in this, right? Like uh, the most that Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib ever did is say, hey, we don't think Israel should be doing the war crimes against Palestinians. And that got them blocked from Israel, and nobody has ever really fought that. Not even their own party, the Democratic Party, like even lifted a finger to say, wait, no, you can't just block Congress people from your country like that. That's like pretty weird and fascist and wrong, probably. Um, However, on the other side, when Ben Gavir goes to a uh, illicit right wing fascist event, a memorial for somebody who wanted to just like indiscriminately abuse Arabs. Uh, the best we can do is just be like, no, you shouldn't have said that. no, we're not going to
Right.
block you. It's implied that the abuse that you want to exert against Arabs, while wrong, still doesn't mean that you can't be a part of, like, our political discourse. You can't. We're not going to bar you from coming over here. Um, and so there's a mismatch of the response, right? Like, where one side is
Right.
saying, "Hey, don't do the murder." Oh, we're banned from your country now. And the other side is saying, "We're gonna do murder," and we're saying, "Oh yeah, you shouldn't have said that, but you're still welcome here." Um,
Yeah, I mean, everyone makes mistakes, right?
right. And then
Like, chill out.
on a maybe grander scale of things, the Biden administration promised, and of course, we here at the Benzo Rehab Dungeon never took this promise to heart because we don't believe in these demons. But Biden, promised that there was going to be an investigation into the shooting of the Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, and that's never happened. Even though even mainstream sources cited that this was almost certainly an Israeli hit job against this journalist. The Biden administration refuses to do any kind of investigation on the matter, and so this just reinforces the kind of things that somebody like Itamar Ben Gavir and Bezalel Smotrich are trying to make the standard of Israeli politics.
Yeah.
That's all I got on
Yes.
this subject.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I've been somewhat less talky tonight, apart from everything being bad.
Yeah.
Unlike most weeks,
You got the
is that
Zionists in
it's
your
like,
DMs.
well,
Oh.
no, just what else? What else to say? Like
Oh,
these
also
people are
also notable.
dreadful.
Um, I meant to prepare a link for this, but I didn't get
No.
around to it, I guess. I've been busy with a lot of things. Israel welcomed people like Viktor Orban, the Hungarian
No.
president. Um, Viktor Orban has done a bunch of like extremely actually anti-Semitic things, like claiming George Soros is in charge of like global politics, that sort of stuff. Um, he hates.
He just plays the classics. That's all. It's
Well,
not.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but the thing is that he hates Jews,
Oh
and
yeah.
and
I mean,
yet
that is
he
one of the classics.
and yet he, as a person who openly hates Jews, has been welcomed in Israel, where Ilan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, uh, which the worst thing you can criticize them for on Israel is they said Israel shouldn't murder Palestinians, are no longer allowed in Israel. Uh,
Yeah,
Viktor
because
Orban
ultimately it's not
actually
about
hates
Judaism,
Jews.
right?
Right.
It's about like state power and
It's
fucking
about
like
state
eliminating
exactly,
people.
and that's why this isn't anti-Semitic to call out Israel like this, because
Um,
what we have here is a state that is acting against the interests of its own people, really, because it's leading its people to wars with every single one of its fucking neighbors. Uh, not only just wars, but like the internal shame and guilt of war crimes and apartheid, which may or may not be felt by the public, but certainly at some point probably will. Uh, be it's like how the Germans felt after Nazism, where they had to like go, oh hey yeah, we really, oh yeah, we really fucked up there.
this
Or
Irish German
yeah,
that
that
was
was a horrible German
bizarre.
accent. I've had a little bit
Hoity
too
toity
tonight.
toity toy! I sure do regret what we did in Poland.
Oi, me laddie, I sure do hate what we did to the Jews. Um,
we're so sorry. We're so sorry. Hoity toity.
Ich bin sorry, my boy. um,
My God.
the accents deteriorate with the amount of drinks I've had, but you
Of
get what I'm
course.
saying. There was this huge public shame in Germany after the fall of the Nazis, and I think a similar sort of thing is going to happen in Israel, and that's not good for a people, right? Like now the Germans are into all sorts of weird ball stepping shit and like
Yeah.
uh other depraved things that we shouldn't even talk about here.
The things that America has done are the larger part of why I go to German Scheisse dungeons, actually.
Yeah,
It's the whole
Scheisse
thing.
dungeons being where they shit on your chest, right?
Scheiß auf mein Brust, Scheiß auf mein Gesicht.
I don't know that much German, but
That was shit on my chest, shit on my face.
yeah, great. I'm glad that we interspersed this with a serious talk about like the war crimes of Israel. We're both guilty of it, and we're both gonna have to deal with that shame. But
Hell yeah.
um, But yeah, so that's kind of like all I had on the subject here of how liberals have just kind of like been complicit in allowing this right wing faction of Israel to rise to power. There's a lot more that goes into it, of course, but this is kind of like the abridged highlights version of all this. And then as we do on this podcast, I have a fun thing that we can look at the end. Which is an intercity police chase that happened in LA
Oh hell
County the
yeah.
other day.
My last thought though
Yes,
on
I was
this
going to
subject
let you have
is
that moment. Go ahead.
uh, get just give them Bavaria. Just do
There you
it.
go. Yeah,
Just do it. It's fine. They can call it something cute. They'll have like a weird fusion cuisine.
they'll
They
just
all
add
love
like
awful
a
techno
C.
music.
They'll add a ch to somewhere in Bavaria, like Bavaria.
The Germans already do that.
Yeah.
But what's the hold on. Actually, we don't even have to. We have to. It has to be Berlin. It has to be Berlin because I would love Israelis to own Berghain. I
Yeah,
think that would be the
that'd be
funniest
hilarious. Yeah.
possible thing is for people to, oh yeah, yeah. Imagine the music that would come from that club. It would be incredible. Anyway,
All right, we settled it.
that's my take.
Get them out of Palestine. Send them to Bavaria. um, but
No, Berlin. We've decided Berlin.
oh, Berlin. Yeah, sorry.
They get Berlin now. And Bavaria. Fuck it. Give them Germany. Give them the whole thing.
I mean, they kind of
Not
earned
like,
it, right?
yes.
People have paid a lot less to get control of that region. I'll tell you that much.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
anyways,
just give them all the gay parts of Germany, which is Germany. It's just
well,
the whole thing.
and just give them the gay parts.
Okay, give them all the west parts and Berlin and Bavaria. So like the west, and then like little pocket
Yeah, I was
here,
gonna
and
say,
then this
I
big
feel
chunk down
like
here.
you're doing like what they did to Palestine.
Yeah,
You just
I
split them
mean,
up. It's
sure.
fine.
Uh,
No, 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 no. It's
and
great that there's a force in between both parts of Palestine.
and then the rest of it, give it to Austria
There you go.
because Austrians, they're just nicer people.
Yeah,
And their German sounds better to me. I don't know. They're just better Germans.
I
Fuck
I know
Germans.
I know
You
at
know,
least one
worse than
Austrian.
Italians. Yeah,
I know at least
same.
one
I
Austrian, and
know.
he's a
I know
he's
like
a he's a
four of
pretty
them.
sweet little guy. You know,
Yeah, they're
I say little
pleasant. They're
guy. I think we're
pleasant
the
folk.
same size. I don't know. We
Yeah, I
haven't
think so.
slept
Which
in a
makes him
minute.
a little guy.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey, hey. All right.
not 300 pounds.
So there
Sorry.
there was a police chase in Los Angeles the other day. Uh, this police chase lasted for about 2 hours. Involved one initially stolen car that the person was stopped for, and then somehow they got possession of two other vehicles over the course of this police chase. Um, this guy sucks. All right. I'm not saying this guy's cool or he's rad or like he totally showed how stupid and fucking bad the police are. I mean, a little bit of the last part. But he led police on almost a 2-hour chase. At certain points, his vehicles failed him, so he had to move to other vehicles. And then it all culminated in like a gas station where he like no longer could escape. The police having missed several fucking opportunities to stop him. Also, so this guy again, not a good guy, has like a rap sheet of like a bunch of Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, did the police actually help here? Because when he was caught, the worst thing that he had done was stolen a Honda Civic, right? By the time he was done with his police pursuit, he had wrecked like countless vehicles, driven people off the road, endangered countless other people, got into like a quasi knife fight with a family and stole their vehicle. So the police chased him, and all he did was like wreck place after place after place, while they failed to capture him in any way, and failed multiple times to like when he was like really boxed in, failed to fucking stop him even though he was boxed in. So completely fucking useless display of the police. And they managed to, in the process of all this, bruise up a guy who was not even remotely guilty of anything, and they knew he wasn't remotely guilty of anything, but they still decided to fucking rough him up anyways. So this is like a quick highlight of it, and then I've got a second clip that he literally got trapped in a cul-de-sac and they couldn't block him in somehow. So we'll watch this clip and then we'll move on to the next one after some commentary, I guess.
In an area known for its high-speed chases, this one stands out. A driver, listen to this, stole 2 vehicles, barreled into police cars, invaded a home, and was threatened with a knife, all in one pursuit. KCAL 9's Tina Patel has the highlights of a chase that startled even law enforcement.
The Sheriff's Department has now identified this man as 32-year-old Johnny Anchondo. He's the driver who led authorities on a high-speed pursuit for more than an hour last night in 3 different vehicles. Even investigators admitted it was an unusual chain of events.
One of the more memorable ones.
John Reynolds was with his family at Knott's Berry Farm when he found out Anchondo had stolen his work van in dramatic fashion.
Police vehicle had him blocked in behind and probably thought he had him secured. But my refrigerated van is so heavy that he was actually able to push the police car out of his way.
Anchondo destroyed Reynolds' van as he drove onto sidewalks and smashed into parked cars. Reynolds is a small business owner and has now started a GoFundMe to help with the cost of renting or buying a new van. The Benitez family is also raising money to replace the brand new work truck that Anchondo stole from their driveway in Whittier. Andres Benitez says they had just gotten home when Anchondo broke in.
So my first reaction was, defense. I opened this up, I grabbed the kitchen knife, and I told him, like, man, you got to get the F out of here, bro. If you don't get out, I'm going to have to stab you. And he just kept saying, please, man, please.
Benitez says he tried to chase Anchondo out, but Anchondo grabbed his keys and got in his truck, blasting through his fence and taking off again. Deputies eventually chased him to this gas station in Hacienda Heights, where he crashed into a gas pump, then backed up, slamming into another patrol vehicle. That's when deputies opened fire and finally took Anchondo into custody. But deputies also detained another man who had been hit in the intersection next to the gas station. He says he heard the gunshots and was just trying to get his family to safety. But in the chaos, deputies treated him as a possible suspect.
It did not have to happen that way. I had nothing to do with it. We're just bystanders getting out of their way. Instead, they went and attacked me brutally.
The Sheriff's Department tells us crews resisted when they tried to detain him, and that's why they thought he was a suspect. They said they let him go when they realized he was not involved. Cruz tells us he is planning on getting a lawyer now. In Hacienda Heights, Tina Patel, KCAL.
So actual criminal.
What did they think that he was doing? What the fuck could he possibly? He was like following along in a little car with his kids. Like, I'm gonna give him notes on the radio.
We realized he wasn't a suspect. He was just a guy that got crashed into and was trying to get away.
Yeah. Suddenly, I realized he wasn't the guy in the car I was chasing.
Exactly. So amazing on that front. That's actually exactly why I wanted to watch that clip, because that last part
wasn't the guy I was shooting at.
Yeah. Just fucking amazing that the police have no mode other than treat everyone like a suspect, even if they're actually a victim in the moment. And you know that they're a victim in the moment because the fucking guy that you've been chasing for an hour and a half or more crashed into this guy, and he got out of his vehicle to try to get away and also to get his family to safety. By the way, wasn't able to get his family to safety because the cops immediately swarmed him and smashed his face into the fucking ground. You could see he had a scar or like a wound on his cheek.
A laceration, yeah.
Yeah, a laceration on his cheek from being forced to the ground. So amazing fucking police work there. They opened fire on the guy, Johnny Anchondo,
who has an action movie name, by the way.
Yeah, that.
I'll point that out.
He led them on an action movie chase. So at one point the tires on the van that he was in gave out, and he was riding on rims. The truck that he eventually was captured in, he had rode on rims for several miles. And the thing was he was doing okay unless he had to hit his brakes, in which case it would just be like a shower of sparks. But he evaded the police multiple times in situations where they really should have just fucking had him.
No.
And then to rough up this guy that's an obvious bystander to the event, oh no, I'm actually working with the suspect, and we coordinated that we would crash at the same gas station.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing he was in a classic chess move where he had someone following behind the cops with a little remote controlled device that would vibrate inside of Johnny's ass every time something came up on the police radio. Right. That's why he was able to do it for so long.
So and then the other thing is they opened fire on the vehicle. It's a stopped vehicle that is no longer functioning enough that he can even move anywhere. They opened fire on the vehicle and somehow managed to not kill him. I don't even know. They shot him with shotgun shells and shit like that, and then I don't know.
They're just launching incendiary grenades into the gas station, sending the dogs. They brought out an Abrams tank.
It's just amazing to me. Obviously, this guy was a threat to the public. And so I'm not opposed to lethal force in that regard, but they fucked up lethal force. Even in one of the few instances I can say lethal force is probably valid here, they couldn't even fucking do that. But there's this scene that I really think is important, which is the cul-de-sac scene. So I've got this. This is the whole chase, by the way, an hour and 40 minutes, and they pick up 20 minutes after the chase has started. So, like I said, almost 2 hours of the police failing to fucking get this guy. But here we go.
And a series of deputies now following him into this neighborhood, or at least two. Okay, so these are the two that were coming. They turned around with them. Those original deputies, just to put this in perspective, appear to have fallen back. They could not keep up with his driving on Hacienda Road, but those two that were coming in the opposite direction are now right behind him. So two brand new deputies engaged in this hot pursuit along El Dorado Avenue here in Hacienda Heights. We are, it looks like a dead end. It's a cul-de-sac. This is scary. This is scary. A cul-de-sac, they're going to come face-to-face with this suspect, and you guys know, and our viewers know, what he's capable of in this situation, because he's already rammed into several vehicles, including deputy vehicles, and there he is again, right through, almost missing them, and now, oh man, continuing that.
He does a fucking
just everyone on the left side.
He does a fucking 3-point turn And the cops don't do anything to barricade the fucking road with their vehicles. They just let them pass right through. You saw one cop car was like, oh no, I'm not doing that, and just kind of like diverted away from him. What the fuck
all
is
the cops
their
were
purpose?
on one side of the road except for one cruiser,
Yeah.
which was just like, you know, kind of there on the other side, but like given plenty of room. That's so funny.
It's so like it's infuriating. The LA police has like one of the largest police budgets in the entire US. They had him trapped in a fucking cul-de-sac and somehow couldn't manage to figure out how to stop this guy. They let him go on, you know, we're this timestamp I have it at is 1 hour and 2 minutes. It goes on for another 38 minutes past that. And
You know,
again,
that's-
like at some point, you know, we'll skip ahead a little bit. I think at this point he's on his rim.
He's going to lose it. He's going to lose control of this vehicle, and it's going to end very ugly. But at least for the time being, right. More sparks.
There you go.
He's got nothing. He's on a rim right now, and they still couldn't figure out a way to stop him. Absolute dog ass showing by the LA police departments, and I think some of this was Orange County as well, which another like completely overfunded police force that doesn't do anything.
Oh yeah. My takeaway with this is that if you want to be part of what's fundamentally like a or functionally a paramilitary force, then you should a paramilitary force that spends most of its time trying to like grovel for credit, right?
Yeah.
Then you should be willing to, for my entertainment, throw your body upon the mill to get torn into pieces by a psychopath in a truck. And if you're not willing to get in the fucking way and get fucking smashed into pieces by this fucking man, then you shouldn't be a cop. You shouldn't be a cop either way, but at least be funny. Like you should die for me.
I mean, at
these people should all die for me.
Yeah, I'm not
they
sure
should die for.
I'm not sure if you're being ironic or not, but in the cul-de-sac, they could have just like stopped his vehicle, right? Like,
no, I know. That's what I'm saying. They just had to fucking like trial. No, I'm not kidding. Like, I may be being a little bit like hyperbolic, but Jesus, just I mean, if you're gonna be a cop, there should be a
going to give you
chance.
the ability to abuse you know, poor people and people of color as you wish, then you also have to take the opposite side of that, which is throwing yourself in the way of danger every now and then, right?
Yeah. You're allowed to, over your career, beat up a few children, but in exchange, you need to make the math
work out. You have to make the math work out.
You need to be drawn and quartered by men in Honda Civics who you've been chasing for 4.5 hours.
There you go.
That's the deal.
So yeah, no, I just thought that like the episode of this is hilarious. If you have time to watch the whole thing, I mean, there's so many instances. He's on foot at one point. The thing with the van where they like blocked him in and then they get out of their vehicle for some reason instead of just like staying in the vehicle and like pinning him inside the van. I don't understand. It's dumb.
He spends 45 minutes on one of those little swan boats in the Tunnel of Love. He keeps painting a whole bunch of like railroad tunnels on the walls.
He pulls out his phone and pays for one of those bird scooters, and they just let him get away on that. No, but yeah, I mean, he's on foot for one point. Tries to break into a vehicle, it doesn't work out for him. He gets back into his vehicle safely and like drives onto another vehicle he thinks he can steal. It's amazing, and
very good.
I mean, the guy's a bad guy for sure. You know, I don't think thieves are cool when they're like hurting other people. I mean, obviously he hurt several working class families over the course of this. He crashed into a bunch of people who were just trying to come home from work. from work, and like ruined a bunch of days and probably livelihoods. But also on the other hand, it's like, what the fuck are the police here for if they can't like stop this guy?
Yeah.
And this, I'm talking about 2 instances out of like 20 that they could have stopped him, and they failed to do so.
Right. Step into the meat grinder of refrigerated trucks.
Yeah.
Die for our amusement. Sacrifice 4 police officer lives for a Honda Civic.
Well, and
I think that's worth it.
That's the other point. Is like, all right, they stopped him and they found out that the Honda Civic he was in was stolen. I mean, they kind of aided him in like 2 more stolen vehicle crimes across the like he probably would have just sold that car to some scrapper or some shit like that and moved on with his day.
Right.
But instead he like ruined more and more lives. The
police
did nothing.
Because and that's part of the point, right, too, is that the police need to be able to put on these great shows of force, even if they're entirely incompetent and don't help at all.
Yep.
Because it's just like, well, there are going to be people that do police chases, so we need more police, or else someo's just going to like steal a Civic and sell it to a chop shop.
Police cause
it happens to be police, yeah. But I mean, props to this guy for one thing, which is that I can't even find my car in like a grocery shopping parking lot half the time. So the fact that he was able to find 3 cars he didn't even have the keys to is pretty. I mean, that's impressive.
I mean, also he pulls off some pretty insane feats of driving. I mean, the first car he was in was a Honda Civic, so a pretty agile car. But then he takes a work van, a refrigerated work van, so like a heavy ass work van, manages to do a bunch of like pretty cool maneuvers in it. And then he takes a work truck and manages to do a bunch of pretty cool maneuvers in that too. Drives on rims for probably like 10 or 20 miles at least.
So
bad guy, but props due where props are due,
Exactly. If you got to be a jerk, do it with style.
Well, so that's the end of the stuff that I have for us tonight. Go ahead and do your plugs.
Hell yeah. So the usual plug. Actually, I don't even remember if I mentioned that I did another episode on Schizotopia. So go check that out. If
I don't think you did.
Yeah, so check that out. Schizotopia.pod on Instagram, or check out their Patreon or any one of their many pages wherever you can find podcasts. Look for them there. It's part 2 of a 3 or 4 part series on Is X the New Schizo? They're very fun. We talk about Kanye in this one. Ooh, a lot of Kanye. Otherwise, I don't know if this was just something that the listener heard or not. Everything's very blurry to me. But I am leaving my workplace due to various ethical concerns.
They wouldn't let him bomb the children anymore. Raytheon.
They wouldn't let me make new cruise missiles with happy faces on them. So I'm leaving my current workplace, and I am going to be looking for other work. But meanwhile, the Patreon still exists, and I still do my weekly workshops on there. I'm also going to be bringing back office hours, as well as some other features of it that have been more or less on pause for a while. So we're bringing a bunch of this stuff back. So we're offering even more stuff. The workshop is every Saturday at 11 a.m. PST, or 11:30 a.m. PST. We push back. It's all right. Otherwise, we offer reading materials, prompts. I'm going to be doing weekly lectures and podcasts again, and just a lot of stuff that's available for you. But yeah, please go check that out. It's patreon.com/Truncata, TRUNCATA. And I think that's all of my shit for the week.
Right. Well, as always, the Benzo Rehab Dungeon is and will always be a free broadcast. However, if you would like to contribute to this project, if you find what we're doing to be enjoyable, or maybe we're just goofy little clown guys that you like listening to, feel free to go to patreon.com/Benzo Rehab Dungeon. You can give as little or as much as you like. I'd like to make it clear that we don't have on the Benzo Rehab Dungeon, we don't have any like exclusive content that you get out of being a subscriber. But you know what I do like to use the Patreon funds for is any of the subscription services that I need in order to run this this project, which includes, you know, Discord fees for, you know, running a server, or just like news agency fees that we had to pay, access to articles, that sort of thing. So basically what I'm trying to say is you don't get anything out of donating to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon. You do get something.
Eventually a photo of my couch.
Yeah. Someday. You do get something out of donating to Truncata. So I would actually, in this moment of time, prefer, if you feel like giving money to either one of us, give it to Danko right now as he looks for a new job. The Benzo Rehab
Wisconsin getting real cold right now.
Yeah. The Benzo Rehab Dungeon is not a for-profit or money-interested project that I have. So that's where that ad is, which is not an ad, maybe, or the worst ad that's ever been given, which is buy our thing. I'm not going to give you anything.
At least it's honest.
Yeah, that's what I like to be, is honest. But really, you know, if you decide to give to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon, you know, some of the proceeds eventually go back into Truncata anyways. Subscribe to it. So, with all that being said, we only have, as usual, 2/3 of our sign off. But we love you. Please take your medicine.
Please take mine too.
What's that? The ghost of John is saying, make sure to share with your friends.
I mean, believe it or not, we used to do this, just you and
I remember it.
So actually, it's weird. It's weird that he's even saying that.
He's an outsider.
We should kick him out of the podcast.
Yeah. All right. You're done. That's it. That's the end.
Beautiful.